Hello and welcome to episode 31, Cayman, of the Spotlight Games podcast.
31?
My name is Patrick, 31. I am now 31 episodes old. Cayman, I am joined by you today, as I'm always joined by, other than the 1 week that you weren't here. Cayman, how are you today? How are you?
Good, Patrick. I'm doing good. I'm here. I'm feeling it. We got a lot of news to talk about today.
I tell you what, we got a thickin' today, Cayman. I say let's just jump right in because we got a whole lot of video games and stuff to talk about because this is the Spotlight Games podcast where each and every week we're going to talk about the latest and the greatest in the world of video games, Cayman. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel or by subscribing in your favorite podcast app of your choice. And hey, while you're there, why don't you give us a little rating, give us a little review, tell your friends about it, go to YouTube, ring the bell, ring ding dong. And hey, don't forget you can be on the show by emailing us your questions and thoughts, concerns, topic ideas, tax returns to mail at spotlightgames.net, or you can DM us on Twitter at spotgamespod.
Your social security card number?
Correct.
Credit card number? Make sure to include the security code on the back of the card.
Yep, CVV would be required. And you can send that as well to Instagram at Spotlight Games Podcast. For those of you out there that are interested in Twitch, we're going to be playing with live streaming our show on Twitch as we record it. So if any of you want to be, we're not doing it right now, but if any of you want to be listening live, so you can throw your little comments in the chat, be like, "Ooh, Patrick, you're wrong." We're going to be doing that. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be talking about it all on socials when we start doing it. And we're also, something else we're talking about on socials, Cayman, is the newest episode of Save Trash Cinema. Tell the folks at home, Cayman, about those sweet, sweet chainsaw hookers from Hollywood.
So as you're listening to this episode, guess what is live? Save Trash Cinema's newest episode, which is Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. So if you're interested in the hookers or chainsaws or hookers or chainsaws, guess what? We got a movie for you. And it is absolutely buck wild bonkers. But we're not going to tell you any more about that because you should listen to the episode. Check it out for yourself. We give a review and we can't tell you what it is because you should just listen to it. It's a fantastic episode. I think you will love it. So
just go listen to the episode, man. Just go listen.
Just give us a taste.
We have a thick show today. We have some reviews roundups. We got a bunch of different game reviews. We're gonna review some games ourselves, folks.
Yeah.
We have a listener topic that we're gonna discuss. We're gonna talk about games that we didn't really like at first that we ended up loving. And there's yet another multi-million-dollar acquisition that we're gonna talk about. But first, Cayman, I would like to start off with what we've been playing. So Cayman, take it away. What have you been playing since we last recorded?
Well, I will say that I've been playing Nintendo Switch Sports, but I want to put a pause on that because I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more when you start talking about what you've been playing. However, I have a mystery game that not even Patrick knows I've been playing. What if I
told you I knew exactly what you've been playing because I have a camera in your apartment?
Oh, I just assumed that you looked to see what my trophy list looked like, and you just looked to see what the most updated game I was playing was. So who's
to say if I did that? Continue.
Yes, I have been playing a little-known game that came out just a little bit over a year ago called Retromania Wrestling.
Tell me all about Retromania Wrestling, Cayman.
So I have beat the game. I am almost got the platinum. I'm literally one trophy away from the platinum. So unfortunately, I can't give you a review of that, but I can pretty much tell you what that entails. The game is a 32-bit or 8-bit, whatever the fuck it is at this point, recreation of that classic arcade style wrestling game that we would have gotten in the early 90s. So think of like the WrestleMania games from the Super Nintendo. That is what this game is. It was made by a studio of like one person.
Hulk Hogan.
It is not that piece of shit, brother. Fucking the Iron Sheik come over, break your neck, jabroni. The game is a faithful recreation of those really nostalgic wrestling games from the early days. The wrestling lineup, the roster is filled with old school wrestlers such as like Animal and Hawk from the Road Warriors, to ECW wrestlers like The BWO, the Blue World Order, one of my personal favorite wrestlers, the Blue Meanie, Tommy Dreamer. There's more recent wrestlers that you might see on AEW or TNA. It's a really cool game. Like, and there's a lot of love and passion that was put into the game. Now, with that being said, the story mode for the game is depressingly short. And it makes sense because this was literally like one person making this game from the ground up. And the love, sweat, and tears that were put into it, you can definitely tell that this was like a passion project for them. And it does fall short in a couple areas.
Sure.
You know, it's like I said, a faithful recreation of an older game, like old style of games. And like we discussed on last week's episode, that doesn't always pay off. Modern quality of life adjustments are not included in this game. And for better or worse, if you want that incredibly throwback, just this game feels like it was made in 1992, you will feel that. But you're also going to be missing out on things like they don't tell you how to do a wrestler's finishing move. They don't tell you how to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And that can be a bit of a bummer. The good news is we have the internet and you can just look it up. But it's not built into the game. And that's kind of a bummer. But I could definitely see how this game could have like a really big cult following. Because it just is. It just fits that kind of vintage feel that not a lot of games do anymore, especially for this genre. You know, we get a WWE game pretty much every year. This past year, they took a year off. But, you know, you get these hyper-realistic games. You don't really get any arcade-style wrestling games anymore. And I feel like that's kind of a genre that should come back because those are fun. Like, fuck yeah, dude. If you can give me like a port just port it over. I don't even give a fuck what comes with it. Just port over WWF No Mercy.
Oh, yeah.
Then I am fucking game for that. But, you know, with that being said, this game, like I said, doesn't have a lot of the quality of life things that you would want. But that doesn't mean that the game's not good. The game is a lot of fun. And for those people who enjoy those types of games, those retro games, like it's a faithful recreation, and I think we should support creators who, you know, the game's cheap. It's like $20.
Yeah. What are like the wrestlers? Like, are there real wrestlers in it, or is it like made up wrestlers?
No, every wrestler in the game is a real wrestler.
Can you play Sting?
No, you can't. And that's the other downside. The roster's not very big. There are some names of some people, like I said, the Road Warriors who get Hawk and Animal. You get my boy Tommy Dreamer out of the ECW with his, with his bamboo stick. So you do get some of those, and you get some more modern wrestlers like Matt Cardona and some other people that I'm just not as familiar with because I don't watch wrestling anymore. But you do get some cool. I do love the fact that they include a lot of people from ECW, which ECW is like such a that is like a time capsule of like what you could get away with.
ECW was actually like me and my brothers were like quote unquote big into wrestling at the peak of like WWF and like the NWO and all
the
that.
Attitude Era. Yeah.
The Attitude Era, yeah. But I didn't know ECW was a thing until like 3 years ago. It just like somehow completely I just missed the whole entire boat on that.
Yeah.
I was a big Sting boy. And
I love Sting, man.
Like the Hitman Hart, Big Sexy Nash, like that era.
Ooh, yeah.
That was so like for me, if it doesn't have those guys, probably not a game for me. But
and that's totally fair.
Yeah,
and like I said, I think this game is really made for a very small subsect of people.
Yeah.
And so I can't really recommend it for anyone who doesn't appreciate vintage wrestling games because like you just have to, and that's fine. You know, people make games. You got Souls games, right? So why not have vintage wrestling games?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, at some point I would love, because I think I might have, because I have my Super Nintendo right there off screen. I might have I might have WrestleMania on the Super Nintendo. So if so, we need to find a CRT TV and hook that up.
I'm bringing over a 30 pack.
Yeah.
We're getting a CCR TV and we're going to sit down and crush so many high lives.
Let's go.
Actually, I say that I'm drinking PBR right now, so whatever.
And I don't drink beer, but I would drink beer for WrestleMania on SNES.
Oh yeah.
I've been playing Nintendo Switch Sports came in, and I am here, and I think with you by my side, I am ready to give a review of this game, and I think you are too.
I think we could 100% do that.
Yeah. So here's my thing with Nintendo Switch Sports. Nintendo Switch Sports. It's almost like a tongue twister.
It is a little bit, yeah.
Back when the Wii came out, when Wii Sports was released, it was a moment in time, right? Like,
sure. Oh, 100%.
Everyone wanted a Wii. Everyone wanted to be bowling. Everyone wanted to be playing tennis. And I think part of that was like we didn't really have video games like that at the time. It was just all motion controls were like kind of a thing in some ways, but like it really kind of blew the doors off of like what motion controls could do in a game. 100%. And I think a lot, it got away with a lot at the time because of this like this new way of playing games. So much so that I think because the ultimate thing, and we can kind of dive into this a little more deeply here, but like the Switch Sports basically feels like Wii Sports just with a couple of new games and missing arguably the best game. And like it just like tennis. So here, let me take a step back.
Okay.
The games that are on it.
Sure.
Tennis, badminton. Mm-hmm. Is the N silent? Is it badminton or is it badminton?
Badminton.
Okay, badminton with a hard N.
Badminton.
No, badminton.
Sure.
Tennis, badminton, volleyball. What's the sword fighting one called? Kombucha?
Yeah, no, it's like it's sword fighting. It's basically sword. It's like the sword fighting game from Wii Resort.
Right. Soccer, and bowling. So the only two games that are from the original are tennis and bowling. They are going to be releasing golf in the fall, but right now is those two. But so like those two games to me feel the exact same. Like nothing seems to have changed at all.
I would
for better or worse.
Yeah, I would say I disagree slightly on bowling.
Okay.
Tennis feels literally like it was ported over from the Wii. Bowling this time around feels way more sensitive.
And like actually now that you say that with tennis, it's not quite as like it is a port, but there's some functionality from Wii Tennis that just like didn't make its way over. Like certain things, like I'm holding my phone as like a Wiimote. There was like a thing where like if you kind of like did that motion, like not a slice, but like I don't know how to describe it. It would do like a weird curve to the ball. That doesn't work.
You can actually you can do that.
Or I haven't figured it out.
Yeah, when Sydney and I, my fiance, we were playing it, and we were like, "What the fuck are we doing?" Because like we were putting like wicked spin, but it was just kind of a learning. We still don't really know how we did it.
Yeah, but so maybe they changed the how on spin, perhaps.
Yeah, and that could very well be with bowling. It is way more sensitive, and so she whips my ass because she like bowls straight, and I'm like, yeah. But like she bowls straight, and for me, like I put a nasty curve on it. So on the Wii version, when I would do that, it would line up perfectly every time to hit the exact spot I knew it was going to hit every time. This time around, when I
know exactly what you're talking about. On the right, I can get a gutter ball from the right.
Yeah, I get a gutter ball every time because it just goes like completely over. So I'm still struggling and trying to learn like how much spin I can actually put on it. Which honestly, like I kind of like that.
Sure.
Because it's not like I can just pick bowling right back up and just, be bowling, 250, 275 every single game.
It's funny because when I picked it up, the very first frame was a strike, and I did the go to the right, do the spin.
Yeah.
And so I will say, I think every frame but one, I either struck or spared. There's only one frame I think where I didn't do either of those. And so like for me, I walked away like, oh, okay, well, I played this game for like 100 hours 12 years ago. Like I don't know that I want that again. And like volleyball feels like tennis, just with more
way over
options. It's overly complicated. Badminton feels like tennis, but faster, and it's 1v1. Like so that just leaves two games. One, which is just like a shittier version of the Wii Sports Resort sword fighting game.
Sure.
And then soccer, which is just like a really slow version of Rocket League. And like, even though I say that, soccer, I think so far is my favorite of them. Like it feels the most new. It feels the most like you actually, with the left Joy-Con, you use the stick to run around. It's not like tennis where it chooses where you're going to go. And it like there's some variation. You can like head the ball, you can kick it high, you can kick it low. Like there's actually some variation, but it is just really slow. Like the actual game of soccer is just you run really, really slow.
Sure.
So like I played that first night, I played like 30 minutes, and then I've played another like hour and a half, maybe.
Now,
which isn't a lot, but like I feel like I got everything that I would want to get from the game.
Did you use the Ring Fit Adventure leg strap to do soccer?
I actually didn't, because it's just one mini game, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's just one mini game or if that's maybe they're gonna be doing it later where it's like a more fleshed out version of that. Obviously, golf will be coming. In June, I think they said, or it's coming sometime in the next month or two. So we'll be getting golf.
I think it's in the fall. Let me look.
We'll get okay. Well, that might be so. We played, and here's my thing. I think I'm more positive on it. I do agree with you in the sense that this might not hit the same way because it really was like a moment in time thing. It was like capturing lightning in a bottle. The Wii Sports was included with every console that you would purchase that had Wii or that was a Wii. And so, people would get it, and first game you were going to play was obviously going to be Wii Sports.
Yeah.
And it got picked up, and it was a huge party game, and people love playing it all the time. And still to this day, and this is why I think I'm more positive on it, is still to this day, people always bring up the fact that where it's like, you know what? I wish I had a Wii to play like bowling.
Sure.
Oh, it's always bowling, right? And I think there's a universe in which this will join the echelons of things like Jackbox, things like Mario Kart, where it might not be a game after you've played it a few times and you've unlocked whatever you want to unlock and do whatever you want to do. This might not be a game that you pick up and play religiously or like do like with Elden Ring where you're playing 100 hours to like complete everything. I think that this is going to find its niche with people who just want to enjoy playing something with their friends. I will say, this weekend, my in-laws are coming to town, and this will be the litmus test. Because, of course, we're going to bust it out. We're going to play it with them. We do it with all the games, whether it's Mario Party, whether it's Mario Kart, whatever. If they latch onto it, and I see that they're having enjoyment, and this is like something that they're like, we want to continue to play, then I think there's a world in which this game exists and is very successful.
Sure.
I think it's going to sell incredibly well.
It's only $40. So like that's a really accessible price tag compared to other video games today. So now, I do think that I don't totally disagree with you.
So my question to you, Patrick, do you think that this Nintendo Switch Sports, do you think it's going to help drive sales for the console?
No, but
okay.
And the reason I say no is because like at this point, there is so goddamn much on Switch to drive sales. Like I don't think there is anything else like needed to convince someone to buy a Switch. And I mean, other than back in 2008 when the Wii came out, people's grandmas were buying Wiis and they were only buying them for Wii Sports.
Can I tell you an
anecdote? Tell me an anecdote.
So I worked in an old folks home back years ago. I was the restaurant manager of an old folks home, and once a week they would have like game night, right? And one of the games the old folks could play was Wii Sports. And it was incredibly successful to the point that no one wanted to play like anything else. They all just kind of wanted to play Wii. So what they ended up doing is they ended up starting a bowling league inside of the old folks home.
That's great.
And every Wednesday they would all come together and they would bowl, and they had like a trophy, basically like they were in a bowling alley. And I think there's a really good chance like this could potentially be picked up in the same way.
It could.
And it might be very limited. And this might just be, this anecdote might just be very insular, and that's probably the
I
truth.
don't think it's insular. I think it's a product of the time. I think. And the reason I say that is because I think this game so far, golf honestly might completely change that for me. But this one, it just feels like, even though bowling and tennis is the exact same, and like if the old folks home, all they wanted to do was bowling, then in that case, Switch Sports would work for them. Volleyball, overly complicated.
Sure.
Soccer, kind of like, from that standpoint, kind of overly complicated. So then, and then like the sword fighting game, I just don't think that one is going to work for a lot of people. So that just leaves 3 games on this, like half of the game essentially. So then the question becomes, is that enough? Maybe. I just don't know. I'm really excited, like similar to what you said with your folks, your in-laws coming this weekend. I'm really excited to see, like, the first time we have like a party.
Yes.
Is this going to work?
Yeah.
If it does, then I'm going to feel a lot better about it. But like right now, I have 0 draw to go back to this game until people are over and want to play it.
Honestly, like, I am excited for us to stop recording so that I can eat food and then bowl.
Great.
Like, I love that. And I think that that's fantastic because, we can give 2 opinions on it.
Yeah.
But my drive to that is, and honestly, like, out of all the games, bowling is the only one that I like really enjoyed again. And that's fine. Like, I think that this is going to be a really good party game. So I agree. I think with my in-laws coming in town, that's going to help me be able to gauge what I think, is going to pull from this. But I also think the same thing too. Next time you have people over and you guys do it, there we go.
Why don't we bring in some of what the internet has to say? Okay,
please. I would be delighted to hear.
So right now, reviews have come out for this game. It's average on Metacritic, a 74. For our YouTube watchers, I have some B-roll pulled up for us. This first one is coming from GameSpot. This is, who is this? Kurt Indivina gave it a 7 out of 10. Kurt says, after all these years, it's easy to associate Wii Sports most with its popularization of motion controls in gaming, but its greatest achievement may actually be that even after 16 years, its core gameplay design is a potent reminder how much fun simple games with friends can be. I didn't realize how much I needed a Wii Sports-like experience in my life until playing Nintendo Switch Sports. Playing by myself for an extended period of time was boring and monotonous, and the absence of certain single-player modes is a major oversight. But Nintendo Switch Sports is a fantastic multiplayer game that, for the most part, invites anyone and everyone to pick up a controller and flail their limbs about. It has its issues, but they fall away when you have other people to play with and are joyously going toe-to-toe in virtual sports. As with the original Wii Sports, Nintendo Switch Sports finds its beauty and fun and simplicity. And bowling is great. Better than real life bowling. This second one, a lot shorter, comes from IGN. This is Colin Stevens, also a 7 out of 10. Nintendo Switch Sports, like Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort before it, is best played as a party game, broken out for any gathering that needs a quick injection of goofy, active fun. While its sparse mixture of old and new sports varies in quality, Switch Sports largely sticks the landing on what made its predecessors memorable. Intuitive motion controls, the ability to effortlessly get a group of people up and moving, and some killer menu music that's liable to get stuck in your head all day. Just don't expect a whole lot of time with it before the novelty wears off.
Yeah, I don't disagree with either one of those reviews. As of right now, I would probably give it either a 7 or a 7.5 or 7.5. That would be my digit number review.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, if you got a Switch, I'd say get it. Because I think that it will be a lot of fun in a party setting with friends. Just make sure, and I think and it's important to point out, at least for bowling, that you can now play simultaneously. So there's no longer waiting on everyone to line up the perfect shot. You can all bowl together, and you can do 4 at a time, and that is
huge improvement,
game changer for me. So
yeah, and also
I would say get it.
Also, the game has online multiplayer. So, like, if you want to just play online. And maybe I'm being a little too hard on it. Maybe I need to give it a little bit more time. I think I expected the magic to immediately come back, and it wasn't. Sure. And so that's, I think, where my disappointment comes from.
And that's totally fair. Like I said, I think you're not wrong at all with anything that you said. But like I said, too, that I think if you've got a Switch, it's a nice little budget title. I think it's going to be great for when you have friends over, and ultimately, for $40, if you got $40 to spend and you're looking for something that you want to do with friends and stuff, I'd say get it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Nintendo Switch Sports. If you got $40 to spend, bring it back.
Bring it back.
There is another game came in that I want to talk about.
Absolutely blows my mind.
I am so shocked by this because the original Rogue Legacy was maybe top 3 Vita games for me. And its sequel just released like 4 days ago and had no clue.
No earthly idea.
Apparently, this has been in early access for 2 years. I think is potentially why this is the case. Very small team, only coming out on Xbox and PC right now, which is a huge bummer for me. I will probably wait until this game eventually comes to Switch. Who knows when that's going to be? Because I think for me, this game is like the perfect handheld experience. I have some B-roll pulled up here, but Cayman, read for our sweet, sweet listeners what the internet has to say about Rogue Legacy 2.
I would indeed. So this comes from Richard Wakeling from GameSpot. He gives it a 9 out of 10. Richard says, although Rogue Legacy 2 is built on a grind to purchase more upgrades and become stronger, it always respects your time. If you use a key to unlock a door, that door will remain unlocked forever. Many bosses don't return after you've beaten them, and you can pay a fee to permanently unlock teleporters at the beginning of each biome, letting you jump ahead without having to find the area's entrance again. There's also an architect who will lock the world for a percentage of your gold, preventing it from changing at the beginning of each new run. This way, you can easily jump straight back into a boss fight without having to fight your way to it. All of this makes Rogue Legacy 2 difficult to put down. The quote-unquote one more run effect is in full force as you choose yet another new heir to embark on another perilous journey. The introduction of distinct classes with their own unique weapons is a masterstroke that elevates the sequel by building on what was already a fantastic premise and satisfying roguelike loop. House Rules makes it more palatable for a wider audience, but also gives players an opportunity to tailor the challenge to their liking, even if that means increasing the difficulty. The breadth of its biomes can sometimes induce backtracking as you search for a path forward, but this is a minor blemish on what is a fantastic game. Sacrificing your family tree has never felt so good. Fantastic line at the end.
So good. For those of you who might not be aware of Rogue Legacy, it's a roguelike game, so it's like Hades if you liked Hades, but it's on a 2D plane. It's not like an isometric game like Hades was. And yeah, it kind of like what the verdict was saying a little bit. You each run, you are another descendant of this family tree, and it's such a fun little like addition. Like, so as like an example of the old game, sometimes your trait would just be that you're really strong and you have like you double damage, or your trait might be that you're nearsighted, and so the screen is fuzzy anything past like 5 feet from you on the screen. And so these like little like traits are just so funny and add like an interesting gameplay spin each time you play. But something that really excites me about this, that verdict was just talking about, is the introduction of classes, and the classes actually meaning something. So like right now on the screen, this is, I think, like the basic like soldier type class. But I was watching IGN's video review, and there's like a barbarian type class, which is just like a lot stronger. There's like a Valkyrie class where they have like a polearm, like a long like spear type axe thing, and it just like looks like it kind of completely changes the gameplay. And so it's just like it's checking all the boxes for me, like better graphics, quality of life improvements, things like what you mentioned. You can pay to like kind of get ahead a little bit each time. I don't think you pay real money. I think you pay in-game money. But yeah, I'm so excited that I'm so surprised that this is happening. I wish it were coming out on a handheld, but I'll probably give it a little bit of a shot on Xbox.
Is it launching on Game Pass?
It is not. It is $20.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's still not bad. That's still not
Still
bad.
not
And
bad. It's either 20 or 25.
Yeah. I agree with you. I remember playing Rogue Legacy on the Vita,
Yeah.
and it's fantastic in handheld mode. Just like Hades is just so much better in handheld mode.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think roguelikes are just honestly, especially 2D roguelikes, are just better in handheld mode.
I agree.
It's because the repetition, the grind, the loop that you have is just you pop something on the background, and you just play through it, and that it feels right.
Yeah,
it's kind of a bummer. I mean, obviously, Microsoft has the you can get the whatever the fuck the thing's called. You know what I'm talking about, where you can play it on your phone.
Yeah.
So you could do that. That is an option. But I do think it's a little bit of a bummer. If what Patrick said though, and I'm pivot to a completely different game. If you like the character traits idea from this game, and you don't have an Xbox, but you want that roguelike feel, and you want that weird ass shit, there's a game called Void Bastards.
I never played Void Bastards.
It is a fuck ton of fun. And they include the same character traits, where one of my personal favorite character traits. So basically you have to go to the whole premise of the game. You have to go to these like an abandoned spaceship, and you have to like collect parts and stuff. And you're a convict. And so they just, every time you die, they send a new convict to go in and do to like collect shit. And you'll fight monsters and aliens and robots and whatnot. But what's hilarious is that the character traits, one of my personal favorites, is you can get a character trait that just makes you incredibly angry and incredibly short. And so your field of view is like you are just the smallest human being. So everything is like towering above you, and your character's just like, "Oh, fuck you!" Like their voice changes, and they're just pissed off, and you get like a buff for that to like offset the fact that you're just tiny. It is absolutely, and the game is absolutely hilarious. Beautiful art style as well. But I think more games need those kind of hooks. I don't think Rogue Legacy would be nearly as fun if there wasn't the weird ass hooks that you get with some of these character traits and some of the stuff like that. Because ultimately, if you don't include some weird hook, then you just have Salt and Sanctuary or whatever.
Yeah, for real though. And like one of my favorite things about Rogue Legacy is it's funny. Like,
oh yeah, it's hilarious.
With this, the traits are fun. Like this, there's a lot of humor kind of like hidden in the game, and we've talked about it before. Like, there's just not enough humor in video games because it's hard, right? Yeah. But there is a game, Cayman, that
I'm so excited.
Speaking of funny, the Stanley Parable just has been finally, after 10 years almost, if not more than that. I think it was 2013 was when the original came out. Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe Edition has launched on consoles and PC. So this is basically, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Stanley Parable, it was one of the most celebrated PC games ever made. It's the genre is kind of like walking simulator. It's puzzly, but it's very much, it's like a it's like a comedy game. Like it's very meta. It's very much like incredibly meta. It's very much a commentary on video games and like what video games are like. And you play as like a guy in an office essentially, and your whole life is being narrated by who's that guy? It's not him, but who's the guy? British guy, older fellow, probably in his like mid 60s. Stephen Fry or Richard Attenborough.
Richard Attenborough.
I was thinking Stephen Fry. It's a real Stephen Fry type. Is that his name? Stephen Fry?
Yeah, Stephen Fry. Yeah, incredibly so.
It's not Stephen Fry, but it's a Stephen Fry type.
Yeah.
He's narrating it, and it's very funny. And have you played the Stanley Parable?
No, it was only been on PC, and I only use my PC to do taxes and to do work.
So this is releasing on PC, PS, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. So it's coming everywhere. And this is one of two games that I forced Rose to let me use her MacBook to play PC games on back in like the mid 2010s. This and Gone Home, before Gone Home was on console, because I just heard so many amazing things about it. And I was like, I have to play this game. So this is one of like two PC games I've ever played on PC, and it is incredible. I cannot wait to play this game again. Partially,
I can't wait to play it for the first time.
And also,
I've only watched like people speed run it, and
Oh,
I've
interesting.
watched videos, so I've never actually got to have hands on. I am beyond excited, even more so beyond excited for the fact that there's a trophy where you have to turn the game off and not play it for 10 years.
Is there really?
Which is like the funniest shit ever to me.
That's amazing.
That's incredible. Yeah.
But there's new content I didn't realize. I there's kind of like another surprise for me. 2 weeks ago, I'm like, there's nothing coming out. Meanwhile, now there are 2 games out that if I knew they were coming, I would have been so excited for. So I'm gonna read. I only pulled one in. This is I'm pulling from IGN. This is Tom Marks. He gave it a 9 out of 10. Its current Metacritic is 90, so it's scoring very, very well. Did the YouTube just crash? There it is. Tom Marks says, the Stanley Parable's base game truly holds up almost a decade later, both in its hilarious narrated writing and the clever satire that houses it. Ultra Deluxe may seem like little more than a decent lighting improvement and a simple console port on the surface, but the new content that's been added alongside those things is on the scale of a whole new video game. Those new encounters are consistently impressive and always entertaining, even if the feeling that we've seen some of these tricks before means they never quite reach the heights of my first surprising playthrough back in 2013. But if you've never played the Stanley Parable at all, Ultra Deluxe is a definitive version that provides another extremely convincing reason to do so. So a really cool thing about this that I was reading about, apparently when you boot it up, it asks you, have you played this game before or not? And I was reading that like they want you to be honest, because if you've played it before, you are going to get a little bit of a different experience this time. All the new content is going to be there, but I think my assumption is the new content is just introduced sooner than it is for someone who hasn't played it before.
I did see I did see like someone tweeted a picture where it was like, I was afraid when I booted up Stanley Parable that like where I was going to find the new content, was I going to miss the new content? And literally there's a door. Like right when you start, there's just a door that was like, open this door to go to new content. Like
it's
incredibly meta.
Fantastic. It's such a funny game. I can't wait to go through it again. And a lot of the listeners that I know, like a lot of our friends that play this or that listen to this, if you play games and you listen to this, you need to play this game. You will like this game. I think it's also $20 or $25.
Yeah.
It's great. So yeah, definitely highly recommend it. Even though I have not played it yet, I can recommend at the very least the base game that is there is incredible. So really excited to jump in to that one. Cayman, we have another big boy. Another
big
although boy. It's a big boy, but it's also kind of a small boy. Comparatively.
I mean,
comparatively. If you weren't comparing it, you'd be like, this is a huge boy. But
I mean, yeah, fair enough. So I guess we'll just let the cat out of the bag. Embracer Group buys Crystal Dynamics, Eidos. That's how you say it, right?
Yeah.
Eidos Montreal, and God damn it, Square Enix Montreal for $300 million.
So when I was like, it's maybe it's a small one, maybe it's a big one. 300 million when you compare it to Xbox buying Activision for 68 billion.
Yeah.
PlayStation buying Bungie for what was it, like 3.6 billion?
Yeah.
Xbox buying Bethesda for like 7 billion. Like these are all in the billions, and this isn't even half a billion. This is 300 million.
True.
But
which I don't think, and the more I sit and think about it, the more it makes sense. But, before I give my thoughts, why don't we go ahead and say a little bit about what Wesley LeBlanc has to say from Game Informer.
It's a long one. Buckle up.
He said, okay, well, I'm buckled up. He says, Embracer Group has entered into an agreement to acquire Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal from, guess what? Square Enix, alongside a catalog of intellectual properties that includes Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, and more than 50 others too. Embracer Group is paying $300 million for these studios and associated IPs, and it's doing it on a, quote, cash and debt-free basis to be paid in full at closing. That's a big thing. Yeah. According to the company, in total, this acquisition will result in roughly 1,100 employees from these 3 studios across 8 locations around the world becoming Embracer Group employees. This purchase is also expected to close during the second quarter of Embracer's 2022 to 2023 financial year, or in other words, sometime between July and September of this year. This is quote from Embracer Group's co-founder and group CEO Lars Wingfors. He says, "We are thrilled to welcome these studios into the Embracer Group. We recognize these fantastic IP, world-class creative talent, and track record of excellence that have been demonstrated time and time again over the past decade. It has been a great pleasure meeting with leadership teams and discussing future plans for how they can realize their ambitions and become a great part of Embracer." Square Enix America and Europe CEO Phil Rogers writes in the release that Embracer is the best kept secret in gaming, and that is a quote, massive decentralized collection of entrepreneurs whom we are thrilled to become a part of today. He calls Embracer Group a perfect fit for Square Enix America and Europe's ambitions, which is to make high quality games with great people sustainably and grow our existing franchises to their best versions. Since Embracer Group is acquiring not just Crystal Dynamics, but the Tomb Raider IP as well, it sounds like the next Tomb Raider game, which was announced just a few weeks ago as a little title that will be developed completely in Unreal Engine 5, will be an Embracer title. As for why Square Enix decided to sell these studios to begin with, which includes the studios behind Marvel's Avengers and Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Square Enix cites adapting to the changes underway in the global business environment and the rise of blockchain technology, cloud gaming, and artificial intelligence, and its own investment in each. Quote, "The transaction will assist the company adapting to the changes underway in the global business environment by establishing a more efficient allocation of resources, which will enhance corporate value by accelerating growth in the company's core business in the digital entertainment domain," Square Enix writes in their own release. In addition, the transaction enables the launch of new business by moving forward with investments in fields such as fucking blockchain.
Boo.
That was just a little toss in. AI and the cloud. Wow. Reading a bit between the lines.
Square I Enix said buckle up. There's a lot to report here.
Yeah, Square Enix has made it clear that it has been less than impressed with the Western Studios' output at times, calling Crystal Dynamics developed Marvel's Avengers a disappointment back in November, and stating that Eidos Montreal's Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy undershot its initial expectations despite strong reviews. Moving forward, Square Enix says its studios in Japan, Square Enix external studios, and the Square Enix Collective will continue to make games, and the company will continue to publish franchises such as Just Cause, Outriders, and Life is Strange. After the transaction closes later this year, Embracer Group says the U.S. will be its number one country by number of game developers, with Canada in second place for it. In total.
You can skip that. I realize that's not necessary.
Well, there we go. That basically brings that to a close because the company says it believes there will be an increasingly strong demand for high quality content, including AAA single player games over the next decade, and this transaction will help meet its demands.
That bit was basically like, there's going to be like 25,000 employees here now. Like, we don't need those numbers.
Yeah. I mean, I guess some insight a little bit as to who is part of Embracer Group, Patrick.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot to unpack here. Mostly, so yeah, Embracer Group, if you're not familiar, we've talked about them a few times in the show before. They are another publisher similar to Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo. You just don't hear from them as much because the stuff that they own, a lot of it is old stuff. So some of the the studios they have, THQ Nordic, Koch Media / Deep Silver, Coffee Stain. So actually, let me start back from the top. THQ Nordic, Biomutant was their most recent game. They have a bunch of old IP, Time Splitters, like that SpongeBob game. I think was a THQ Nordic game.
Destroy All Humans.
Yeah, like a bunch of old stuff.
Nintendo or all the Nickelodeon games.
Yeah, Deep Silver is Saints Row.
Yep.
So we're going to be seeing their game here in a bit later this year. Coffee Stain, their main game is Goat Simulator. So like they're a smaller team. Amplifier, Saber Interactive, Deca, Gearbox, who did and do Borderlands, Asmodee, and Dark Horse Media. So like there's some big names here. So to kind of fill in some of those blanks, Volition is the one who does Saints Row. They're a Deep Silver company. At Aspire, who I didn't say on this list, they're doing the Knights of the Old Republic remake that's coming later this year. They're a part of Saber Interactive. 4A Games does the Metro series. 3D Realms does the Duke Nukem series. Slipgate Ironworks does the Ghost Runner series. Like, there's a bunch of like B tier stuff here, but then there's, I mean, A tier stuff like Borderlands, Saints Row. Like there's it's like a mixture of big names and small names.
Yeah, I love that. So Embracer Group, and I think what's kind of cool about them is that they hit every niche, right? So they've got single A games, indie games, they've got double A games, and triple A games. And I think the big tell here, and a lot of people were like, "Oh man, Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix and Square Enix is American Group and Eidos Montreal, blah blah blah." Like, well, obviously the reason that they sold them for $300 million and not $1 billion is because they're not worth a shit, and that is absolutely empirically false.
Yeah,
the reason, and I stand by this, the reason that they sold off for that price, one, is because they're getting cash in hand. Yeah. That's a big deal. That's the first big deal, because a lot of this other stuff is going to be, oh, these deals are going to play out, and they're going to play out over the course of years. So the payout's going to take a long time. The other thing is, the whole reason Square Enix bought all of these companies to begin with was because at the time, Japanese developers weren't producing games that were being purchased at a high volume.
Yeah.
So Square Enix wanted to come in and wanted to buy out a lot of American developers or Western developers so they could bolster those and basically fit that market. Well, now we're kind of seeing the market correct itself, and Japanese developers are producing back like they used to. And Square Enix doesn't necessarily need these developers anymore, especially because, they're also not hitting. Marvel's Avengers was a major disappointment. Don't get me wrong, like, the games aren't bad, but they're not.
It was a major disappointment in Square's eyes. That, I think, is the biggest issue here, is that Square, all of these games that they have now sold, they said Tomb Raider was a disappointment. The modern Tomb Raider trilogy sold nearly 40 million copies combined.
True.
And they said it was a disappointment. Like, are you kidding? How is that a disappointment? Guardians of the Galaxy, Critical Darling. It didn't sell like Fortnite, but like, it sold well, but to Square, it was a failure. Marvel's Avengers, categorically a failure. Like, it didn't sell well. Like, so that one definitely not good. But like, I think part of it is Square has had this, like, it's like they assumed that these Western developers were going to be selling gangbusters. And so even these games that are doing well, they keep calling failures. And I feel like that's part of it. But I think the reason that they are selling these studios off is because they're trimming the fat so that they can be sold.
Yeah.
So like, if they have $300 million that they can invest in the blockchain, AI, and other bullshit.
Fucking stupid.
So they're going to use that to make a quick buck. And if I'm Sony or if I'm Microsoft, I mean, probably not going to be Microsoft because they're all eyes are on Microsoft with the Activision acquisition. But now Square probably looks a little more fruitful to buy because they don't have these three companies and like Square Enix Montreal, the one that we're not talking about, they haven't released anything good in a while. Like they mostly do mobile games. They did Lara Croft Go, they did Deus Ex Go, they did Hitman Go. Square got rid of the Hitman IP because it wasn't working well for them. So like, that's not there anymore. So like, there's a lot of stuff. I think they were just like, you know what? These games take longer to make than we want them to take. And they're not making us hundreds of millions of dollars. So let's let them go to someone else. Because the interesting part here is they sold the teams and the IP. Yeah. So now Embracer Group owns Tomb Raider. They own Deus Ex. They own Legacy of Kain. They own, what's the other really big one I'm leaving out right here? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
They don't own the Marvel games, like the Marvel IP that was licensed. But what does matter, Cayman?
what does matter is that they've put all of their backing behind Platinum Games' Babylon's Fall, which I honestly think categorically, from everything I've seen, I refuse to touch it myself. Maybe one day I'll suffer through it. Nah,
No,
probably not.
please don't.
That game might be honestly the worst game to have come out in the last few years.
But that's, I think that is actually a great metaphor for Square right now. Their finger is not on the pulse anymore.
No, and what we've seen, and I think this is what blows my mind, is that they were like, okay, well, we're going to do Marvel's Avengers, and it's going to be a game as a service, but we don't really know how to do games as a service. And then what we end up finding out is like the last year or so, maybe 2 years, games as a service, they're not hitting like they used to. That single player narrative focused, they're back, baby.
Yeah.
Like The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima. These games are just Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is another one where it's like multiplayer, but not a games as a service. And these types of games, they're not like, sure, you've got Division, you've got Fortnite and Rocket League, but like outside of that, like we're not seeing games as a service. They're not as big anymore. And Square Enix releases Babylon's Fall, thinking that's going to be the next big thing. And apparently it's dog shit. And that's not just me paraphrasing. I've seen so many media outlets just straight up call it dog shit.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you're right. Their finger is not on the pulse. They don't know what's going on. And they're hedging now. They're hedging all of their bets that NFTs and blockchain is going to be the next thing. But we've started to see developers be like, okay, we're backing off of it because we've realized that this maybe isn't going to work. I mean, shit. Okay. Everyone knows about the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Yeah.
They're useless. They're almost worthless at this point. NFTs aren't the future, guys.
But here and so I agree. And I think that's why they are doing this, to make themselves more attractive for a sale. Because blockchain, AI, the cloud, really blockchain specifically, not a long-term solution. That it's a quick buck solution. And so I feel like what they're doing, because like if you also look at these three studios, Crystal Dynamics, they just announced the new Tomb Raider game. So that's probably 6 years out. And they're helping with production on the new
Perfect Dark
game. So like how much money are they going to make on that? Right. They're just getting they're probably just getting paid to do it. They're not going to be making money probably on sales. So like that, 6 years before they start seeing money from Crystal Dynamics. Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy just came out. So it's probably another 3 to 4 years before they start seeing any money from there. So like their ability to earn from these three studios is not very close by, or it's not very kind of near in the future. So it just leaves like the next Final Fantasy game, Kingdom Hearts, when that comes out 15 years from now, like all these games that are in development on the Eastern side of Square Enix to be making money. So they got rid of the Western stuff. So now I feel like they using this $300 million to invest in blockchain, they can do that to be like, hey, now look at our profit margin. Look at our ability to grow as a company. Why don't you come buy us PlayStation, or why don't you come buy us Tencent? Right. That's my read on the situation, because otherwise, like, who in their right mind is selling Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, and all these other things for the blockchain? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense otherwise.
It's silly. It's absolutely silly.
But I do feel like, in a weird way, maybe not for Guardians of the Galaxy because that's a licensed property, but like in a weird way, I wonder if it's better for these things to be under Embracer Group. Like,
no, I 1,000% think
in like
that it is.
Embracer Group very much. It feels to me like, I don't know a ton about Embracer Group, but it really feels like, seeing their output, it definitely feels like they are a video game business, right? Like they are, whoever is running it, they just are really good business people, and they are investing via video games. But I think like they just did Battle for Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob game from like the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
I bet I wouldn't be surprised if like we end up getting like a Gex game in the next few years. You know what I mean? Like,
and I think that's
Square
what I
Enix never
love
would do
about
that,
them.
but I agree. Like, I feel like that's something that fits the mold of Embracer, but it doesn't fit the mold anymore of Square.
Yeah.
And so, I'm
you're
excited.
100% correct. You are 100% correct.
So, but yeah, it was shocking at first for me when it's like they're selling for 300 million. Tomb Raider, one of the most iconic IPs of video games, and Deus Ex, which has kind of lost its luster in the last like 10 years, but it's a pretty big game franchise. And like these are three really talented studios. So I was like that 300 million at first surprised me, but I think it actually kind of makes sense. As a legal expert in studio acquisitions, came in. It feels.
I think at this point we pretty much are.
Sure.
I've read enough Forbes articles to know.
Hey, that's true. I've listened to enough Forbes articles that you've read to me. I feel like I know.
That's his bedtime stories. Forbes articles.
I love it when you read to me at bedtime, Kevin. You're welcome. I love it. Let's end the show with a little listener topic.
Let's fucking do it, bro.
Friend of the show. Let's bring it back, baby. Friend of the show, Nick. Hello, Nick. How are you?
Hey, baby.
Sent us in a little topic idea that you and him messaged back and forth a little bit. You brought it to me. I'm like, this is an awesome topic. I love it. Threw it to Instagram today. Got a couple of responses. So we got a little bit of time here to talk about games that we didn't like at first that we ended up loving. I've put together a little list, and I'm going to go through them, and let's talk about them, Cayman.
Let's do it.
Ratchet and Clank 2016. That was
interesting choice,
because this was a game that you wanted me. You were like, "Got to play this." You gave me your copy of this game.
I did give you.
And this was back in like 2017, probably. And it just like I tried for 3 years. I went back to that game multiple times, and then a few months before Rift Apart, I was like, you know what? I have got to play Ratchet and Clank 2016. And for whatever reason, it worked that time. Couldn't put it down, got the platinum, played it for like 2 weeks straight. And now like one of my favorite platformer, like mascot platformer games.
It's fantastic game. Absolutely fantastic. For me, I'll do the most recent game, Elden Ring. When I started with Elden Ring, I was not feeling it. And honestly, I was very close to giving up plenty of times within the first 20 to 30 hours.
Yeah.
I stuck with it. And honestly, it's my game of the year this year. It's a very fucking good game. And I think the conversations around it are well-deserved. But when I first started playing it, I was like, Souls games suck. Souls games fans suck. You guys can suck my balls. It's done. Fucking done. But no. And I ended up putting almost probably around 100 hours into it, 90 to 100 hours. And like I said, it's my game of the year.
There you go. A game of the year for me a few years ago, Dragon Age Inquisition. Ooh. This was a game that came out. I actually don't remember the original release date, but it was one of the first games I bought on PS4. And because I really loved Dragon Age Origins on the Xbox 360.
Sure.
And I love a good fantasy game. Okay, I love a good swords and goblins and dragons.
It fucking doesn't, man. I
love it. Doesn't. And I was like, Dragon Age Inquisition. We got a sprawling 100+ hour RPG. We got dwarves. We got elves. We got fucking dragons. I mean, it's in the title, Cayman.
It is in the title.
We have an Inquisition. I am the Inquisitor. And
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
In this world, it's a good thing.
Fucking colonists.
In the colonizers bullshit. I tried again. This one took me like 2 years to get into, and then one of my very good friends, Daniel, who I don't know that if Daniel listens to our podcast, but I hope he does. And if he does, hi Daniel, I miss you. He married me and Rose. Great guy. You love him. I actually don't know that you've met him, but
I mean, I was at your wedding, so
you've seen him at the very least. He was like, he took his glasses off. He looked at me and said, Patrick, you got to play this game. I was like, okay, fine. I'll play it. And couldn't put it down for like 4 months. One of my probably in my like top 10 games of all time now. It those first few hours so slow, painfully slow, you might say. But once you get into it, once you know what's happening, once you understand this little symbol on your hand, the power it comes with, the whole world opens up to you, Cayman. What's another one for you?
Borderlands. I am the biggest evangelist for Borderlands. I picked up a copy of Borderlands when it first came out, and I put maybe 2 to 3 hours into it and absolutely hated it. I thought the jokes were stupid. I thought the gameplay was bad, and I did not fucking like the game. Fast forward about a year and a half, I was just struggling to try to figure out what I wanted to play. This was during the time at GameStop where it was like you would just take games back. Like you'd play them and then be like, I don't like this, I'll take it back. And I picked up the definitive edition, the Game of the Year edition, and was like, fuck it. I'm going to give this one more shot. A lot of people really like it. Let's give it a shot. Absolutely fucking fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And was like, I don't know, maybe I was just in a weird mood when I played it, but the jokes all hit. The gameplay hit. The loot grind loop was on fire, and I have played every single Borderlands since and absolutely fucking love Borderlands. And yeah, just started off, just didn't like it. And I don't know why. And I think, could it just be, and a lot of times we get in situations where it just doesn't, we're not in the mood for that. And I gave up early, and I'm so happy that I decided to give it another chance. And I would like to add Borderlands, my very first platinum.
Oh, there you go.
And that's what got me into trophy hunting.
I remember we must not have talked about you not liking Borderlands, because I remember the very first time I ever heard of Borderlands, you were like, hey, here's my copy. Go play this game. I love it. And I went and I did it and I loved it. Yeah, funny. I didn't know that was your experience. Let's bring in one from the audience, Cayman.
Let's fucking do it, bro.
This comes from Skylar.
Ooh, hello, Skylar. Boy. Skylar, what's up?
Skylar says Hades. Couldn't get into the grind at first, he says. Played again a year later and was obsessed. I didn't have that same experience. I just immediately was obsessed, but I'm glad that a year later that you came around on it, because that's one of the greatest games ever.
I can see where he comes from, though.
100% I can see where he comes from.
The grind could definitely be a turnoff at first.
For sure. Another one for me, Cayman.
Ooh, tell me.
Skyward Sword. Honestly, there are a few Zelda games that could fall into this camp for me, because back in 2010-ish, around when Skyward Sword came out, actually, I had played Wind Waker and I really loved it. I had dabbled with Ocarina but didn't really fuck with it. Same thing with Majora's Mask. And Skyward Sword, I remember, was one, had the Wii, had just started dating Rose, brought the Wii to her place and left it there, because I was like, this will be my, when I'm at Rose's and want to play video games, console. And I remember buying Skyward Sword because I was like, I loved Wind Waker, I liked Twilight Princess, and I want to play a Zelda game. And played it for 3 hours and was like, ugh, I just don't care about this. It just didn't hit. And then 8 years later, this was when I already had a Switch, but I had lent my brother-in-law the Wii, and he gave it back. And I was like, you know what? Because I had when I bought it, I bought the special edition. It's a golden Wiimote. I was like, you know what? I never actually played Skyward Sword. So I booted it up, plugged it in, and played through Skyward Sword in its entirety. And I wouldn't go so far as to say I loved it, but I liked it enough that I bought it on sale recently for the Switch, because I was like, you know what? I could play that game again.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
So if you're a Zelda person and you haven't played Skyward Sword on Switch, I haven't played it on Switch yet, but friend Katie has. She enjoys it on Switch. So I say probably a good game on Switch.
Fuck yeah.
But that's my third one.
Let me tell you. Let's bring in another audience submission.
Oh, let's do it.
Some comes from our friend Sydney. Sydney said, not my fiance, Sydney.
Not your fiance, Sydney.
Not my fiance, Sydney, but another fantastic Sydney. And she says, World of Warcraft with the sweat smile emoji. And I think that emoji is apt.
Yes.
Look, like I said before, I am not a PC gamer. I know master race, blah blah blah. But look, if there was a World of Warcraft that wasn't like already 20 years deep into its lore and people playing it, I might give it a go. I love the idea of like this big, expansive world, quest lines, and all of this stuff. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And World of Warcraft. Now, for me, Control.
God, what a game.
So I had Control, your copy, actually.
What a game.
Your copy. You lent me your copy back on the PlayStation 4. And now I was playing.
I think you still have that, actually.
No, maybe. I don't think so. I think I gave it back. It doesn't matter. Neither here nor there.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So Patrick gave me your copy. He gave me his copy. And Patrick, obviously, because he's a big baller, big money maker, shot caller, he had a PS4 Pro. I did not. I still have my launch PS4 Pro. And Control ran like absolute ass. It sounded like a jet engine. My PlayStation 4 was on was the temperature of the sun.
Yeah.
And was so loud, and like the loading screens would take like 4 minutes. Yeah. And Control is not an easy game.
No.
It can be very brutal at times. And the amount of dying I was doing, I was like, I don't have time for this shit. There's no place that I'm going to sit here and wait for this. I just can't do it. Then we got for free through PlayStation Plus back right after the launch of the PlayStation 5, Control Ultimate Edition for the PlayStation 5. Load times, lightning fast. It performed so well. And then fucking platinum that game. Just actually
Look
all three of the games that I chose, I just realized I've platinumed all three.
Look at you.
But yeah, no, I absolutely love Control. It has this weird, like Lynchy, like David Lynch vibe to it. And the world building is absolutely insane. And it's like borderline horror and just really fucking weird. And the soundtrack is fucking phenomenal.
So good.
Such a great game. Fantastic game.
I think about probably like once a month that segment in like the second half of the game when you're going through that like maze type situation where the music is just like blaring. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, when you're listening to the soundtrack from the janitor.
Oh yes,
dude, insane, absolutely insane. Honestly,
go play that game if you've not played it.
Go play that fucking game, guys. It's insanely good.
It's also on Switch. Actually, it's like a cloud version. So I've never played it. Might actually suck. Who knows? But man, that game is so good. I want to pose the reverse came in.
Okay.
We can kind of burn through these. We don't have to go as deep into them, but what's a game that you like really liked at first? And like the more it sat with you, the more you're like, you know what? Not my game.
Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it at the beginning. I love the H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu kind of mythos and the world building. And then the load times were egregiously fucking long. And the game was brutally fucking difficult. And eventually I snapped a controller in half. So we're moving on, Patrick. What game do you have?
And this is a game I want to give another shot. I just downloaded. Oh yeah, this is something I wanted to talk about earlier. I'll talk about it next week. I just got I expanded my hard drive on PS5. And so I re-downloaded this game because I want to give it another shot. And it's Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Fair.
I like Final Fantasy. Like I've not played all of them. I've played like 9, 10, 10-2. Like I played a few of them. But I never played 7. And I was like, you know what? Final Fantasy VII Remake, what a time to jump in. What a time to be alive. And at first I was like, wow, this is great. They've changed the battle system. The graphics are amazing. And like 3 hours in, I was just like, I just can't be bothered to pick this game back up. Like I'm just so bored by it. So like I said, I want to go back, and actually it was probably more like 10 hours in, but it really lost its hold on me. So that was one. I was pretty disappointed to walk away from that one. So I'm going to give it another shot.
Fair. Mine would be Immortal Phoenix Rising. I mean, the game has charm. It's got humor. It's just boring. Yeah. That's it. It's just boring, guys.
Yeah, I had the exact same experience. Although I kind of knew within the first like hour. I was like, oh,
it took me about 10 hours before I was like, I can't. I really loved it at the beginning. I was like, the humor is incredible. The world is hilarious. Like, it's such a really cool area and yada yada. And just goddamn, it was just boring.
Yeah.
Just really boring. So I just ditched it.
How about another one for me? This one's going to surprise you. The Last of Us. Just kidding. Watch Dogs Legion. This was one of the. If it wasn't a launch game on PS5, it was pretty close to it. But I loved Watch Dogs 1 and 2. Like the glow up from 1 to 2 was so big. Like it was a huge glow up for me. And so I had really high expectations. I was worried leading into the release of Watch Dogs Legion because they completely changed the formula. Like you're not like one person anymore. Like the whole thing is like you can be like anyone in the city. And at first I was like, it's a next gen Watch Dogs. And within a few hours I was like, this just is not the same. This whole like this Legion thing, I was like, nah, this isn't for me. So if anyone is out there, if you have a PS5 and you want a copy of Watch Dogs Legion, I own it physically. You can have it. Let me know. Not a great endorsement, but maybe you'll like it. Fantastic. What's another one for you, Cayman?
My last one. This is not going to shock anyone. Duke Nukem Forever. So here's the thing, guys. I grew up with Duke Nukem. I bonded with my uncle over Duke Nukem and Doom, and Wolfenstein 3D. That was like probably the last time I ever played a PC game was like that back then. I'll just tell you how long it's been. And I love Duke Nukem. I love that he's super shitty. Like as a character, he's just the fucking worst. But there's something nostalgic about it. And when Duke Nukem Forever came out, I just bit into the nostalgia. I pre-ordered the game. I actually got the special edition of it. It came a little bust that I threw away because I was so angry. First couple hours of the game really hit. And I was like, okay, like it's got that shitty Duke Nukem shit where he's just a bad person that we shouldn't even discuss.
Yeah.
And we're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, oh man, it's like kind of still feels like Duke Nukem. And like, this is cool. And then the rest of the game happened. And the rest of the game is really bad. Really, really, really bad.
I saw that happen in real time. I remember you at the beginning being like, Duke Nukem's back. And then a few days later, you're like, wow, this is maybe the worst game I've ever played.
It still could potentially be one of the worst games I've ever played. Yeah. It is. Look, I try not to hate too much on games because there's like people who worked really hard to make them.
For sure.
Those people.
They knew better. They knew better.
Shame. Randy Pitchford, fuck you.
Okay, actually, he doesn't know better. Because
he doesn't. He's also a piece of shit. He is literally the version of Duke Nukem that's just not as cool. Yeah. He's just the shitty version.
Correct. He wishes he
wishes he had at least some swagger.
He wishes he could live in a world in which it was okay to be Duke Nukem.
He wishes he could live in a world where it's okay to be a magician.
Yes, please. Check, please. Final one for me, Fallout 4. Might be a shock. I actually changed it. I had a different one on this list, but I was like, the more I thought about it, I was about to talk about it, I was like, no, that doesn't fit this. I just didn't. Didn't quite vibe with me.
The 70th time that someone pops up to say a settlement needs my help, fuck you. So no, I agree with you. This is a solid choice.
Leading into Fallout 4, my biggest fear was if it's just Fallout 3 in a new place, I will be very disappointed. And it's exactly what it was. It was a game that came out like 7-something years later, and it felt like a last gen port. It was ugly. It just like didn't run well. The story didn't do it for me. The base building that they force on you, just like I hated it. I was super disappointed in Fallout 4. And I hope that we don't have the same experience with Starfield, that we don't go, oh, it's just Fallout, but in space. Like I hope that they've actually, which I think it might be.
Oh no, it definitely might be. Oh God, it definitely might be.
It definitely might be exactly that. Oh no, Patrick.
Oh no.
So we'll see. We'll report back on November 22nd, 2022, or November 11th, 2022, when it comes out, supposedly. So yeah, let us know. We got a few. Let me actually, as I say this, let us know what games that fall into this for you. Maybe you liked it at first and then you hated it, or you didn't really like it at first, didn't vibe with you, and then you grew to love it. No new submissions on Instagram. You've all let me down. Not true. Not true. Really quickly, I'll burn through this in about 30 seconds. I have some updates for the calendar. Cayman.
Hit us.
If you have an Xbox, if you're an Xbox owner, new Game Pass games coming in May. Trek to Yomi, which is a Embracer Group game, which actually looks really cool, by the way.
It does.
Citizen Sleeper, Danganronpa 2, Loot River, This War of Mine Final Cut, and NHL 2022, which I will probably be playing because it's playoff season. Avalanche might bring the cup home. Who's to say? So that's happening. Also, not a game announcement, but a conference announcement, a showcase announcement. June 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, Xbox and Bethesda will be having their games showcase. We talked a few weeks ago, or several weeks ago now, maybe actually we might not have covered it on the show. E3 is canceled officially, not happening virtually or in person, but Xbox is still having a showcase. So I assume this means all the big guns are going to be having their showcases like they normally did during E3, where they'll announce all their new stuff for this year and the future. But that is another date to put on the old calendar, Cayman. And with that, that's our show.
Gotta love it.
Gotta love it. We brought it back, I would say. I would say we brought it back.
I think we brought it back.
You know, we brought it back so much that why don't you go follow Cayman on Twitter at KCayman? Let him know how much we brought it back. Why don't you go follow me on Twitter at Patrick Schwag? Let me know how much we brought it back. You can go follow the pod on Twitter at Spot Games Pod. You can follow the pod on Instagram at Spot Games Podcast. You can follow Safe Charge Cinema everywhere at Safe Charge Cinema. Go watch some Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers with us.
Woo!
Ooh. Right into the show, mail at spotlightgames.net with your thoughts, questions, concerns, tax returns,
and
CVV numbers.
And you can bring it back.
And you can bring it back. Don't send us your tax returns or anything legal like that. I don't want it.
Yeah.
Don't send it, or I'm telling the police. Cayman, thank you.
Patrick, thank you.
Until we meet again.
Which will be tomorrow.
Which will be tomorrow. Like, subscribe, share, or else bring it back.
Bring it back.